outside. Kayaker, Olympic kayaker, all kinds of background. I guess my favorite is, so when his mom was paddling and he was little, he's a baby, she just put him in the back of the canoe and steered with him right there. So he's been paddling for a while. Anyways, just ask him questions, but he's been doing this more than I have, so he'll know what to tell y'all. Go ahead.
Yeah, my name's Danny. I've been racing for 18 years. I'm 28. I've been coaching a junior program for probably 16 years, and then coaching our men's program for the last 7. So a lot of the stuff I learned, I just learned growing up, and a lot of it I just kind of passed it on, coaching beforehand. I spent some time doing Olympic kayak training and even made a Pan American team. So all these concepts we kind of blended into the outrigger stroke, and Ching asked me to just kind of give a basic run through for you guys, a couple drills, a couple strategies to kind of help you focus when you're paddling, to remember to do little things like timing, put the paddle in the water. So I always like to start out, first things first, paddle's super basic, double bend, straight split, brilliant, it doesn't really matter. The paddle's designed to go in the water vertically. So that's one crucial part that the paddle's designed to do, and if you skip that part, that's technique. So if your top hand ever starts to drift into the middle of the boat, that means your paddle's at an angle and you're actually losing a lot of your power, a lot of your leverage. So one thing we always focus on is top hand over the bottom, vertical blade. The other thing is you can see that every paddle except for the steering blades has a nice bend right here, and most of the steering blades have it now too. The paddle's designed to go in the water at a forward angle, not straight up and down. And basically, however you get the paddle in the water and vertical, so it comes right alongside the boat, however you can do that and generate speed is the best way to do that. Now, there's a lot of other strategies we can go over, but for the most part, that's how the paddle works. And making a boat go fast is pretty easy. It's how far you go each stroke times how many strokes you can take in a minute. So two different strategies. You can take more strokes and get fitter and stronger and younger and faster, or you can learn to go further each stroke. So we're going to work on mostly the going further each stroke and a couple strategies to help you generate a little more speed. And when Ching gets a hold of you and it's time to train, we're just going to work on you guys taking more strokes just in case you need to. So does anyone have any questions on that so far? All right. When you put the paddle in the water, you're not actually pulling the paddle back to you. The paddle sticks in the water where it is, and when you take a stroke, you're actually moving yourself past that point. So if you ever see bubbles or hear bubbles, that's actually the paddle slipping and coming back to you, and that's not you going forward. That's the paddle coming backwards. So one thing we focus on a lot back home, and it's a crucial part, and you're going to laugh, but 99% of paddlers do not put the paddle in the water before they pull. And that's a very, very big difference. If you could put the paddle in the water where you actually reach and you have that beautiful picture, and then pull from there, you'll go a little bit further every stroke. And even in regattas, how many strokes do you guys take? Quite a few. Now, if you went this much further every stroke, you think that would help out, make a big difference? Big thing is getting the paddle into the water before you pull. There's a couple ways to put the paddle in the water. You can get to the front of your stroke, and if you're sitting up nice and straight and everything is where it's supposed to be, you can actually just lean forward and put the paddle in. The other way to do it is if you come from a surf ski background, since you can't actually lean anywhere in a surf ski or you'll fall out on the next stroke, is when you get to the front of the stroke, you can actually take your elbows that are slightly bent and stab the water. And then the other way that I like to do it, and I found this helps with the rest of my stroke, is as I'm coming forward, I actually come out to the side, and at the front of the stroke, I'll slice in from the side. Now, they all work, and all 6 paddlers can pick something different and do it, and it'll still work. But ideally, you want the whole crew to be on the same page. So find out what works for you and your crew, and then kind of start to implement that. But don't be afraid to try out all the other ways. Because for all you know, you've been doing this all the time. Oh, this is how I love to do it. And all of a sudden, you start coming in from the side, and it feels a little bit different. Maybe you match up behind a certain paddler. And the key in the big boats is, it doesn't matter what you do as long as everybody does the same thing. So as far as catch, the hardest thing to do is to actually place the paddle in the water before you go. And it gets harder when you're in a race situation, when you want to beat the guy next to you, when that's coming down to the finish of a race. A lot of times paddlers will swing forward, they'll get really excited, they'll swing up, and then they'll come down in the air, back, touch water here, then put the paddle in the water here. So this is where they're actually starting their stroke. Where it's very easy if you just look from the side to say, why don't you just put the paddle in the water right there, and then go. They'll go a little bit further each time. So one thing that I like to do when we get on here on the water is what we call the catch drill or a set drill. And it's literally slowing down the stroke to just putting the blade in the water. Now, how many of you guys have stopped and thought about what you're doing and where you're at when you get to the catch in a stroke? There's really not a lot of time to stop and think about that. All we're going to do is we're going to start from an exit, and we're actually just going to set the blade in the water and not pull back. And the whole paddle has to be underwater. And you'll find this is going to be very difficult for a couple strokes. And then what we're also going to do is we're going to allow you some time to move your hands, reposition your body, lean in, lean out, and then you can start to figure out kind of where you need to be at the swing forward. Now we're still talking about just putting the paddle in the water, so you're going to find out this is a very big part of the stroke. Does anyone have any questions on this so far? Nothing? This is easy. Awesome. So again, what were the 3 strategies to put the paddle in the water? You got one of them? Poke it in, stab it. And you can think of trying to stab a fish or trying to slide the paddle through a mail slot. But the trick is the paddle's going forward as you swing in. Anyone got another one?
Slice.
Slicing. Side entry. And I like slice or side entry because when you're racing, you can't really say a full sentence. Hey guys, we all need to put the paddles in the water from the side. Kind of out of breath. So all you hear is side entry, and everyone immediately cues and goes, oh, I know what he's talking about. Let's all focus on that. So what we're going to do is, we got one more. What was the last one? Anyone?
Lean forward.
Just lean forward, yeah. That's the one I like, a combination of the side entry and the lean forward. And we'll get into using your legs and body weight. But this is all just ways to put the paddle in the water. The big thing is it always goes in the water going forward. Does anyone have a paddle right now that they don't mind putting on the ground? You can actually practice this on dry land. Oh, go for it. You can do it. Come up here. A lot of times when I'm teaching the kids, I'll put them in the boats to do this. The other way is if we have nice grass or nice carpet, we'll just practice this. And all I'll have you do is I'm going to have you start arms straight and your paddle's in position. Top hand over the bottom. And all I want you to do is sitting up nice and straight. We're going to go ahead and just rotate a little bit. We'll get into this a little bit later. And all I want you to do to put the paddle in the water is to just bend right at the hips, stab it forward. Alright? Now sit up. Now do it again. Sit up. Do it again. That's putting the blade in the water going forward. Now, one thing we find is, go ahead, do it one more time. Stop right there. Most people have a picture of them doing this in the canoe where the water's right here. Already leaning forward, forward angle, vertical paddle. Looks pretty good, huh? No? That's not how you guys paddle? Anyone? One issue I've seen is if you're already leaning forward before you put the paddle in the water, guess what you can't do in order to put the blade in the water? You can't lean more. That's not a natural motion, and most people won't do it. And if you do you feel like you can pull from this position now? Strength. So one strategy that you want to think about when you are putting the paddle in the water is don't lean forward before you put the blade in. And a lot of people will dip their head, mostly because you're tired, because you're anxious, and you're trying to paddle really hard. But dip your head and your whole body will commit forward as your paddle's going up. Now we've gotten past the catch. We're going to think about putting our body weight onto the blade. Raise your hand if you can do 10 pull-ups. Raise your hand if you can do 1 pull-up. Okay, that's more. Raise your hand if you can hang on the bar for 1 second. Perfect. Which is the easiest?
Hang on the bar for 1 second.
Hanging on the bar. So what we're going to think about is when we finally get the paddle to catch and it's locked in and the paddle's not moving or going anywhere, no bubbles, we want to think about getting the weight of our bodies and placing it onto the blade. Now rather than pull the whole thing with your arms and do a pull-up, you're literally just going to support your weight in your lower lat and in your top lat. So once the paddle paddle sticks, when you set the blade, you're gonna know it feels heavy, it's not fun, it hurts more. But the more you do it, the more you'll get used to it, and the higher top end potential you'll have. But now that we're gonna put the paddle in the water, it's gonna hurt a lot. All you're gonna do is hang your weight on the blade. So you're literally just keeping yourself from falling over, and it goes into the lats, and it goes into the legs. Shinlu, have you gone over driving off your legs? Tried? Okay. Well, this is easy since everyone's standing here. If you have a paddle, you can use it, but I'm just going to demonstrate first off, is for us that you can actually put either leg forward, and there's different strategies for it. I personally like to, if I'm on the left side, put my left leg forward. And this gives me a nice stroke where I'll show you the rhythm on it. But you can also do it the other way, and this is how, if you've ever been to Canada and seen the high kneel canoeing in the Olympics, they paddle this way, and that's mostly for balance since their boats are about this skinny and there's no wobble. So driving off your legs is pretty basic. Think about it, if you wanted to open a locked door, it's boarded up, would you walk up, just pull on the handle? Or would you put your foot up on it, turn your whole body, grab on, and start prying? There's significantly more power and force in that motion than there is in this motion. So what we're going to start to do is we're going to incorporate the entire body, and in order to do this, can you think about your legs and twisting and reaching and putting the paddle in the water, all while staying in perfect timing, all during one stroke? No. There's not a lot of processing going on, especially when you're racing. So what we're going to do is we're going to break it down into small parts, and we're going to focus on just little parts, and you're going to find that the way you set yourself up on your swing forward is going to be the way you naturally want to uncoil. So on the recovery, can you think about a lot? Oh, that hurt. Man, I wonder if we're going faster. Oh, we're starting to pass that crew next to us. Any processing you normally have in your brain happens on the swing forward as you take a breath. So what we're going to do is that's where we're going to do all our thinking. What I'd like to do is, can we use the boats to do a little dry land stuff? Doesn't matter either side. I'd like to grab a handful of people and just kind of set you guys up. What we're thinking about is I want to show you guys and actually go hands-on as far as driving off the legs. And if we had a little more space, we could spread out and do it with the paddles. Where can we move to get a little more space? Right over here. Yeah. Alright, well, if you got a paddle or not, it's not a problem. What I want you to do is let's put a handful of people in this canoe, and we'll go over some basic, starting to get your legs involved.